Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to what I believe is the very last solo session on the technology stage tonight. Apparently, I am only being followed by the roundtable discussion, which I am really looking forward to. My name is Joanna. I'm Chief Innovation Officer at Online Event Support, and having this great privilege to be actually closing up this very technical part of the conference, I thought it might be a good idea to give you a little bit of wrap up of what has been said today and share with you my insights from this very practical point of view, because what I do on a daily basis is simply help you choose the best, the most suitable solution for your online events, to implement this solution, to adjust it to your needs, as well as mix and match different tools to actually give you the outcome you're looking for. I'm also part of the tech support team. You can meet me in tech support section during most of our online events. Therefore, I know from scratch the problems that actually online event organizers, speakers, and attendees deal with at every stage of organizing an online event. And as this conference itself is mostly about transfer of knowledge, I thought I would share with you a little bit of my experience with organizing online events and bring to your attention some crucial things you need to remember about while planning such an event tech-wise. And I hope this presentation will help you understand the mechanism behind organizing an online event. And as you can probably tell, this is a pre-recorded session, and it's pre-recorded for a very simple reason. We are actually having 3 parallel events ongoing right now, and I'm pretty much personally engaged in organization of every single one of them. So unfortunately, I won't be able to join you live for the whole session, but I will be joining you live for the Q&A session at the end of my presentation. So if any kind of questions, comments, or remarks pops into your mind, simply write them on chat. I will be happy to address them after this presentation. So straight to the point. There are 2 core elements that actually make an online event. Those 2 areas you need to take into consideration while planning on organizing such an event. And the first one is the type of streaming production you're going to need, and the second one is this virtual environment you want to place your event in. Putting it simple, you need to know what you want to show to your audience and where do you want to show it. And as far as the what part is concerned, you can go 2 ways. You can either use a professional studio production, or you can simply produce the event on your own using your software and your online tools. And actually, Spark of Change is a great example to be talking about this, because 2 out of 3 stages are actually produced in our studio, but the first stage, the management stage, is produced completely outside of studio with our online tool we use on daily basis while producing our online events. Studio production. So you basically go for the studio production when you are hosting the type of event that requires this pretty television-like image to be streamed to your audience. Of course, studio production gives you great opportunities like professional camera setup, professional lighting, LED screens, sound engineering, green box technology maybe. If it comes to virtual platform, you also need to know how complex solution you're going to need. Do you only need a space online to be displaying your live stream, maybe with additional text chat window, or do you need this whole advanced solution that will allow your attendees to interact in real time with each other on camera? Do you have any networking sessions planned? Do you have any kind of exhibition sessions planned? Do you have in mind any special way to engage your audience that you need a particular solution for? And I, on daily basis, work on the platform side. I take care of these solutions, and I would like to bring to your attention a few crucial things that need to be considered that can actually determine the final choice of your online tool. Live streaming service is actually the most important part of your online event tech-wise, and it's also proven to be most tricky because most of people don't quite understand the technology behind the online streaming and the whole procedure. So to put it simple, first of all, you need a software that is able to produce and send the signal. You also need a server that is able to receive the signal, interpret it, and distribute it to your audience. And of course, you need a player in which this live streaming can be displayed to your audience. And what I'm telling you about this is because many platforms that actually announce themselves as fully complex virtual event solution lack this basic feature. The only thing they allow is to actually place a player with a live streaming on their website, but all those three elements I've just mentioned to you about, so producing the signal, receiving the signal, and displaying the signal, have to be organized outside of platform. And of course, it's doable, assuming that you have a software that allows you to produce and send out signal, because you can simply use one of the popular platforms like YouTube to receive the signal and have the player to be amped on your website or on your virtual platform. But there are security issues that you definitely need to have in mind if you're going for that kind of solution. And of course, this is an issue when you're hosting an online event with restricted access, for example, paid content that you don't want to be accessible to the people that have not paid for it. But it's also even a bigger issue, for example, if you're having any kind of corporate internal event where there is fragile data presented, there is always a risk of leak of this data, and you need to be aware of it if you're going for this kind of solution. And of course, there are ways to prevent it by simply using dedicated server and player for your event, but this is an extra cost and you need to have it in mind while choosing online platform you're going to use. Another thing worth mentioning in terms of live streaming, if you're producing an event outside of studio, is the source of signal you're sending to your audience. And you need to know whether you're going to use an online platform that actually allows live streaming, which is much safer solution, or are you going to be streaming directly from your computer and you're the source of signal? Because in that case, please do think of a backup internet connection. And as far as producing the image you're actually streaming to your audience is concerned, as mentioned, you can use studio production or you can do it on your own. And there is a whole variety of tools you can use for that purpose. And I would like to present to you some examples of the tools we actually use at Online Event Support and the effects you can obtain with those tools. And I think it's best to start with the platform we are all using today, which is Pine tool. And as you can see, Pine has this streaming service I told you about built in, which means you can connect with a few speakers directly on Pine. You can prepare yourself for the live streaming and you can actually start the live streaming and present your content to the audience present on Pine. You can also use Pine as this platform that receives the signal from some other tool and displays it directly to your audience. And as you can see, the image you can obtain on Pine is very clear, very simple. The screen actually divides itself into as many parts as the number of speakers joining your session. You can also have a presentation via screen sharing solution. As you can see, there are no additional elements like backgrounds or overlays or any kind of this stuff. So if you're going for this very clear, very professional image without any additional elements that may distract your audience, Pine is the way to go. And if you need a more fancy solution that will actually give you options to customize your streaming, to add some extra backgrounds, overlays, to play a little bit with the layouts of the speakers, you can of course use an external solution and also stream directly from that solution to Pine and obtain this really interesting effect. You can also use a dedicated software that actually allows you to obtain the effect you know from studio productions. And I'm actually recording this speech right now, but I could be as well streaming it directly to any other virtual platform. And as you can see, you can simply add some picture overlays as well as play the video directly from this view in the stream. What you also need to remember about while producing live streaming is this latency effect. The fact that everything you say in real time will actually reach your audience with a little bit of delay. The delay is different for different tools. It may come up even to 30 seconds, and you need to keep that in mind if you're playing any kind of live interaction with your audience. And this is a huge concern for many online event organizers, and they don't quite understand why this latency even exists. But it's actually really necessary. And if you go a few years back, when the internet connection wasn't that great as it is nowadays, when you tried to watch any kind of video on the internet, it took you some time for the video to buffer so you can actually watch it smoothly. And this is what the latency is for. The server used this extra time, this 15 up to 30 seconds, to actually process the video you are streaming to your audience, so they get a very smooth and non-interrupted image on their site. And it's also very useful for a very simple purpose. You have also always this few extra seconds to react if anything goes wrong during your live streaming, and you can cut the streaming on the audience and to prevent them from seeing or hearing something that shouldn't be. Moving on to other basic features that may actually come in handy when you're hosting virtual event, you need to double check whether the platform you're using actually allows any kind of live on-camera interactions between the attendees on the event. You need to think about whether you need this kind of interaction or you're simply live streaming. But if you plan to have any kind of live Q&A session, for example, or you're having any kind of workshops or any other interactions that require this video conference model, you need to double check whether your platform actually allows you to do that. And if you're lucky enough to actually use a solution that allows that kind of interaction, you need to think about the limitations that come with it. For example, the most popular limitation is the number of people that can interact with each other in real time at the same moment. Therefore, you need to consider what kind of interactions you have actually planned for event, and do you have any workshop-like sessions when you actually need many people to be in the same place at the very same time and be able to communicate with each other in real time? Or do you plan more sort of Q&A session where there is a sequence of people actually taking the floor, and then those limits are not your concern? And this is something we're actually dealing with right now, a supporting organization of a General Assembly of one of the international associations. There is up to 9-person limit on Pine if it comes to live on-camera video interactions. But for this type of meeting like General Assembly, General Conference, this is perfectly fine because you have only one person always present in the stream, and this is the chairperson. And when any delegate is actually seeking floor, he simply raises his hands. He's being recognized by the chairperson and led on backstage to actually take the floor and speak to the General Assembly, because you don't need 300 delegates to interact with each other in real time all the time. And if you're planning any activities that actually require live interaction of more people than your platform allows you to, you can of course always use the external solution just for those particular sessions and then get back to your basic platform. And actually this is a solution we are using very often in online event support. And this live interaction feature actually comes in handy with many various activities you might have planned for your virtual event. For example, if you're planning on hosting an exhibition session, or you want to grant your sponsors and partners their unique space they can brand and interact with other attendees, because basically this is the main purpose of their presence at the event. You can only do that if you have this video connection feature built in your platform, so you need to keep that in mind. Otherwise, you would have to use external solutions. It's the same case as with live streaming. And if you're, for example, planning an exhibition session when you have over 20 exhibitors, it's going to be really hard to produce this kind of event if you don't have video interaction in your platform. One more thing you need to pay attention to while choosing your virtual platform when it comes to interactions are possible one-on-one interactions between the attendees of your event. So the absolute basic as for now is of course the direct messages module and one-on-one video interactions, but many of the platforms also offer a solution which is known as business speed dating, and which is basically randomly connecting people during a networking session for a short conversation like 2, 3, or 5 minutes, and after the conversation is over the person is being connected with another randomly chosen interlocutor. So it's a very nice feature, very popular amongst our clients. Well, I think I've proven my point if it comes to the fact that you need to know the solution you're using, but you also need to know the human factor. I would say the most important thing if it comes to organizing an online event is to know your speakers, because believe you me, speakers are the biggest troublemakers if it comes to organizing a virtual event, apart from the tech support, of course. And I think this is actually a good time to share with you a little bit of our stories from the events we actually produced last year. And for example, in July, we were organizing Pilates Summit 2020. And this event was challenging on many levels. First of all, this was an event that was focused on physical activity, and we needed to come up with a solution that would actually allow us to present to the audience physical activity in first of all attractive way, and second of all accessible to them. And this is pretty much why we've decided to actually go for pre-recorded sessions. And this is in general very good practice. Even if you're having speakers that actually want to speak live only, ask them to prepare in advance a pre-recording in case something happens and the speaker cannot actually join you during live session. And that happens more often than you can imagine. But getting back to the Pilates Summit itself, we actually went for pre-recordings for absolute most of the sessions, apart from two ladies that actually said they're not going to do a pre-recording, they only want to go live. And we were warned by the organizers that we're actually dealing with two very special teachers, because those are the ladies who have studied with Joe Pilates himself. And I have no idea about Pilates whatsoever, but I could imagine that Joe Pilates was the gentleman that actually invented this method, and that this happened a while ago. So I asked the organizer, how old are those ladies we need to take this special care of? And the organizer was like, oh, one is 87 and the second one is 91. Dum 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 dum. So just to give you a little bit of background, you're all on Pine right now, and basically if I gave you the right permission, you're exactly 3 clicks away of actually becoming a speaker at this event and start live streaming on Pine. This is how easy it is. But still, we are dealing with the 87 and 91 years old lady. This is not going to happen. So I was like, okay, this is going to be a little bit challenging, but let's do that. That seems like a lot of fun. But are those ladies familiar with any video online communicator? And the organizer is like, yeah, they're quite comfortable with Zoom. So I thought it's doable. The only challenge was actually that we have all the attendees and all the other speakers already onboarded on Pine, and we couldn't simply move those sessions entirely to Zoom because the attendees would probably get lost. So we simply streamed all the sessions directly to Pine, and it came out quite nicely, to be honest. And it's one of the events I actually like the most. So as you can see, when you're hosting an online event, you have to be ready to actually mix and match different tools on the fly for many reasons. Well, the reason is always the same. It's the technological barrier, but it's caused by different factors. In case of Pilates Summit, it was, let's say, generation gap, but we also faced some actual technical issues that made us use totally different solution that we planned in the very first place. And I think it's a good time for another bedtime story about the event that we actually were organizing in September 2020. So this was a huge investment conference based on group meetings, and we weren't briefed properly, to be completely honest, and we also didn't ask enough questions, and we did not fully understand the formula for those meetings. And the thing was that one party of those meetings were these huge companies, mostly state-owned companies, like banking institutions, oil companies, energy providers, etc., etc. And as you can imagine, those were very specific entities with a very special security systems and firewalls. And the thing is that with this kind of corporate networks and their security systems, most of the software like Zoom, etc., actually allowing you to have a video connections are blocked by default. And the exact same thing happened with Pine. And it's a very easy issue to solve. You simply add an exception in your firewall, but again, we have banking institution, etc. So it took us a while to actually deal with that, but we've managed. We've went through thousands of calls with those over 20 companies, but we unblocked Pine for them. But it turned out at the very last stage of organizing this event that actually the other party of the meetings are investment funds. So pretty much the same case if it comes to security system in their corporate networks. And the major difference is that on one side we had like 20 companies that actually have been tested, and on the other side we had 100 investors. And of course, we set up a technical support booth for those investors so they can join us and test their connection and check whether they're experiencing any problems, because it doesn't necessarily have to be this case. But the event was planned for Monday, and on Friday evening we had 4 investors out of 100 tested. So basically we had roughly 2 days to come up with some sort of backup solution for this event, because it was obvious to us that on Monday there's going to be the absolute Armageddon with almost 100 untested meeting attendees. And to make my event even more fun, it actually turned out that many of those investors would like to use the call in via phone option, which obviously Pine doesn't have. So that was the additional challenge I had to face during the weekend, but actually we've managed. We simply decided to go for a safe solution that is not blocked by any network security systems, etc., and that actually allows also, in case of emergency, call in via phone. And basically what we did is rent 10 additional computers, because that was how many parallel sessions we had at this time. And the only purpose of those rented on Saturday night 10 computers was to establish connection between Pine and the other solutions, so attendees on both of these tools could actually communicate with each other in real time. So as you can see, there are many aspects you have to take into consideration while planning your online event. That event I told you about turned out pretty well. We actually received very positive feedback from all the parties actually engaged in organizing this event. And as far as the feedback is concerned, I would like to ask you to look into your chat tab. You can find a poll in there. So simply click on this green tile announcing that new poll was added. I'm very curious about the results. You can see the results in real time. I will make probably some comment on that during my live Q&A session that is about to come up. And actually, I'm looking at my timer and I should be finished by now. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your attention, and see you in a while during the Q&A session.
Hi, so the time has come for our meeting for the question and answer. Hi, Anna. I hope you can hear us. I think, yes.
I hope you can hear me. Yes.
Yeah, yes.
I
See,
think
we can hear you. You can hear
everything
us.
should be all right now.
Yes, as you said
Yes, sorry, I
during
had to mute myself put myself on mute because, as you probably know, I'm in our office right now and we are having three parallel events running at this very same time. So just to make sure you won't hear any of my team colleagues, I put myself on mute. But glad I
yes.
can hear you right
And you've mentioned that you've recorded your session because of all those duties, but again, it's a
now.
great
Exactly.
showcase of how you can participate in an online event when you cannot be in two places at the same time. With the live event, it wouldn't be possible in this spectrum to record it and so quickly send to us to have it and to get your insight on the subject. So thank you for having the time still to answer a couple of questions that came to our attention. But my first question must be, does everything work on your end in terms of our event?
Everything always works on our end.
And that's the only proper answer. Your team told me that you tend to say that in virtual events, if content is a king, then technology is the queen. Why do you say that? Please explain yourself.
Do you really want me to explain the saying that actually our boss forced into us? No, but basically this is true. To be honest, this is true because you can have great content, and if you don't have a solution to deliver it to the audience and to your target audience, well, not much you can do with the content. Of course, it works both ways. Actually, it was also brought by one of the speakers that you cannot overrate the technology part in online events, because if you don't have the great content, even if it's delivered in a perfect tech wise way, it still means nothing. So I think they both need each other, and actually good content and great technology backup make a good virtual event.
And how important is professional speaker coaching during online events compared to the pre pandemic reality?
Well, that was also brought a few times during our event today on many stages. Actually, I think all of the three stages, and I also think this actually shows how important it is. I mentioned during my presentation about some case studies, the events we realized in the past event. And actually, if it comes to coaching the speakers, this is a crucial, absolutely crucial thing, because as you heard, you cope with many different speakers with many different technological backgrounds, sometimes with absolutely no technological background at all. And on our end, you have to actually deal with it. So if it comes to our events, it looks pretty much the same as if it comes to the events produced in the studio. You have to have a test call with every speaker at least once, but most of the times we need to have at least two or three rehearsals to actually be sure that it's going to work on the speaker's end. Because if it comes to platform production, entirely platform production, when you don't include the studio, we don't only have the speakers on the main stages, but we actually have speakers, for example, in the exhibition booths or sponsor booths. And for example, one of the events we are running right now have 90 country booths, and 90 country representatives have their own space, and we need to conduct test calls with each one of them to make sure that on the day of the event actually everything goes the way it's supposed to go.
So, what would you say is the key element to manage virtual events well behind the scenes? Is it the communication with your team, or maybe the perfect understanding of the technology behind it? What would you vote up in those two?
Well, I would say both, but I would be very careful about using the word perfect, because, for example, I don't perfectly understand what's going on behind the scenes on the studio end, and it works the other way around. Like, right, guys from the studio don't quite understand what's going on my end, and somehow we make this work because of the communication. And as mentioned, this communication with virtual events actually works on many levels, because this is a communication with my team. We even have our secret language, to be honest. This is communication between the platform and the studio production, and I think both you and Ola can actually tell a lot about it. And the next part is the communication with speakers and the attendees. So I would say communication is the key, but with a very good tech background.
Thank you very much for your insights. I know that you are in a rush. As you've mentioned, you have 3 events to oversee right now at this very moment. So I won't keep you away from your duties. Thanks to you, we are here on those 3 stages. So with a great thank you for all the hard work that all the people, once again mentioning it today, all the people on the backstage, everyone who's not visible during the event, their work is a cornerstone for what we create during the event. So once again, a big thank you to you and to everyone who's supporting you in your job, to every assistant in your tech job. And I hope that we'll have many, many more events to co-create together. But for now, thank you. And we are going forward with what we have here on the tech stage.
Thank
Thanks to
you.
you.